Here's the game. Stop forgetting who you are. Because when I remember who I am at my best, I do really well. I behave really, really well. I let things that would bother me slip right off my shoulders like it's nothing. It's like, I'm my best. I don't care about that stuff. It's when I forget to be who I am, is when stuff like that hooks me, drags me down, gets me down, makes me sad, depressed, angry, rageful. I do all those emotions when I forget who I am.
Welcome to Mirror Talk Soulful Conversations. If this is your first time here, we're so glad you found us. And to our returning listeners, welcome back. We've missed you. Take a moment to hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on the inspiration, wisdom, and heartwarming stories we share every week. Let's grow together, one soulful conversation at a time.
Welcome to Mirror Talk Soulful Conversations, where we explore the truths, stories, and wisdom that awaken our souls and empower us to live fully. Today's guest is someone whose life and work embody the spirit of service, discipline, and mastery. He's the founder and president and CEO of Samurai Success Incorporated, an international executive, organizational, and personal coaching firm that has been transforming the lives of over 27 years. With a distinguished career in real estate, politics, as Tony Robbins' #1 national trainer, has spent decades guiding people to live in alignment with their true selves, creating from soul, not ego. He is also the author of the Amazon best-selling book, Swords of Illumination, samurai-inspired fable that reveals timeless principles for success, destiny, and inner mastery. Welcome to the show, David. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, Toby. Thanks for having me on, man.
Thank you so much for joining me for Soulful Conversations. I had to go through all of that because I read all that introduction because of I want to capture a little bit of everything that you've done, the amazing work you've done over the years. And I mean, the introduction cannot do justice to everything that you've done, but I just let's keep it as short.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me on the Soulful Conversation like this, on this episode. And I'm looking forward to learning about your life story, your life journey, and also everything that you do out there. And we're talking also about your book, Swords of Illumination, and all the swords that we get to pull out and, fight through life. But before we go into all of that goodness or that juiciness, we want to play a game of wild cards. And before we start recording, you said you're interested. So okay, let's do it.
I'm in.
So we have 3 stacks of cards, and I'm shuffling the first stack of cards right now. And I get to pick up randomly and ask you a question.
Okay. All right.
Just to get to know you a little bit better. So the first question is, what is your favorite compliment someone has given you?
Favorite compliment someone else gives me?
Yes.
I can tell you that giving me compliments as a coach is flattering. Don't get me wrong. But if you want to talk about my love language, it's acts of service. And interestingly, when I was younger, I actually was words of affirmation, giving me compliments. But as a coach, I found that really didn't work because my clients were giving me all these nice compliments, but they weren't doing the work. And I was like, we got to stop that. So as an act of service person, my greatest joy is that when you and I agree in our coaching work about you improving you working on you go and do the work and then demonstrate that work. There is nothing more joyful to me than that, is watching someone agree to what we've agreed upon and then go do the work and then come back with a story of the success that comes from that. And sometimes the failure that comes from that, which is a level of success in itself, but no better compliment than actually doing the work we've.
Oh, that's awesome. I can see the smile on your face right now. It must bring you so much joy and happiness to see people's life transformed. Yeah, that's awesome. I love that so much. Are you ready for the next question? Yes, confessions, level 2. The question is, okay. Okay. What is the most embarrassing memory you have?
The most embarrassing memory I have. Yes. The most embarrassing. I've had quite a few of them for sure in my life.
Which one tops the list?
Okay. I remember a time when I used to bite my nails. So as a young kid, as a matter of fact, my dad actually used to paint my nails with this liquid so that I wouldn't bite them, kind of things,
Yeah.
right? And I was shy, I was introverted, I was nervous, but I knew I had a big plan that I wanted to do this lifetime. But I was still a little bit offset and a little bit not sure of myself, so I used to bite my nails. And I remember I was very interested in dating this very beautiful woman, and we were really close, and we were just really getting closer and closer. And then I remember her looking at my hands and she was like, "Oh, you're a nail biter." And it just really shocked me, about how much influence that had, because she goes, "I could never be with someone who bites their nails." And I was like, "Really? What does that mean to you?" Kind of thing. I was really curious. Well, someone that's unsure, they're nervous, they're doing all these things. And so I just remember that moment of doing something that seemed to be so personal in my own life, but how it affected other people. So that was that embarrassing moment. I will tell you, it doesn't sound like I'm embarrassed by things, because I'm not really. I know that sounds strange, but not a lot of stuff really embarrasses me about those. But I remember when I was younger, that's definitely one of those key moments that someone really kind of shocked me with my own behaviors.
Yeah. Or just, I mean, I'm just curious to know, like, is that kind of memory that keeps on popping up from time to time in your brain or your head sometimes?
That's interesting, because the work we do here is about going back to our past and forgiving those moments.
Mm.
Now, here's an interesting concept. So when I came around this energy work, this frequency work, soul work, by the way, once you understand that, you are this body and all this stuff, but you're also a soul, and you've come here to play some parts. And part of this body throws off energy or frequency. And part of that frequency can come from your ego, or it can come from your soul. And if you integrate those, it can come from both those aspects. And you have a very different experience based upon that frequency that you choose. So a lot of our work is about recapturing a lot of that power. So imagine, as a human being, you have 100% of your power available to you to go and do things in life. Well, what's interesting is that if you have a memory that triggers you, or hooks you, as we call it, to a past where you actually have a emotional event like embarrassment or shame or any of the other negative emotions that might go along with that, if that is triggered by a memory in the past, there's energy stored there. And so the work we do here, very first work you do as a client with us, is you actually go back to that work and you heal that work so that you regain the power and energy from that moment, and you bring it back to this power of no, so you can build things, as opposed to it pulling you back into the deep holes of things and making you feel shameful and angry and all those things. If we don't heal those things, then we can't take that energy and put it forth to something positive. So much of the work we've done here and do here is about healing that work. So when I go back to those memories, they're still there. They
Mm.
just don't have that hook anymore. They don't have that trigger effect, right? And that's what I'm looking for, because I now know that I've captured all that energy back from that
Yes.
moment, and I'm not having a PTSD moment, right? Kind of thing. And I'm pulling all that energy back to this moment so that I can use it and build a better life.
That's awesome. So you could think back and not be sad about it, but just, yeah, be happy, or just, be neutral about it, basically.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, I love that. I will get deeper into that very soon. But the last question from the word card. Are you ready? So this is the level 3, getting deep. And the question I pulled up was, what do you wish people could see?
What do I wish people could see?
Yes.
I think the great thing that I've been working on for the last 30 plus years is my own self-awareness. I think that a lot of us really do like control, and I'm certainly one of those people. When you start to realize how much you really can control in this lifetime, I got pretty excited, because I thought I could control other people and their behaviors and all this other stuff. And you can do none of those things. I believe me, I've tried my best to be able to affect other people that way. And I found that it really violated one of the natural laws of this place, which is other people's free will. So we have to agree to be able to work together cooperatively. And that's really tough in a very competitive marketplace like in the States. It's a very competitive place and everybody's competing with each other. But I will tell you, the most successful teams and people really collaborate with people. They cooperate with people, and they compete against the marketplace, or they compete against themselves, not over each other. So the thing that I'd love for people to see is just more self-awareness around how I'm affecting things, so that I can realize there's certain behaviors that get you certain results and certain behaviors that don't get you those results. Because that's where real suffering, Toby, happens, when we keep doing these results and expect something to happen and it doesn't. And we just keep doing it, which of course is the definition of insanity, right?
Yeah, yes.
Doing the same thing over and over. So it's interesting. And I will tell you, as much as I'm answering the question, remember, if everyone saw their own self-awareness, I'd be out of a job.
Mm.
It wouldn't be possible, because part of the work that I do with clients and our team does with clients is help you become aware of your own stuff. Now, listen, I'm really good at noticing your stuff, Toby. I'm not so good at noticing my own stuff sometimes. It's hard to coach yourself, right? That's why I have a lot of coaches in my life, because I want to have them help me become self-aware so I can make those changes.
A question to that, if I may.
Sure.
So I'm the question just coming up in my head right now. So this journey of self-awareness, is it a journey that ends at some point, or is it something we have to keep on doing? Like, do I have to keep on learning more about myself to like get into the grave, or I could come to you one day and you put me through a coaching program and I get to know about myself and then I'm fine for the rest of my life? Oh
man, I would love for that to be true. I have never met a person on this planet that has ever stopped the journey. As a matter of fact, it's kind of like, well, what are we really doing here as humans? We're solving problems, constantly solving what we consider problems. Well, when does that problem solving end? Well, it's when you transition. It's when you pass away. And then, whatever your beliefs are, maybe there's a whole new set of problems to be able to deal with. So I believe this is this divinity and this infinite game of life, which doesn't ever end. So if you can get really good at solving problems and not being hooked by the problem is unsolvable, or I've got to fix this, or whatever that looks like to you, then you could really start winning the game at a very different level, because there's so much perfection in this world that we're missing by getting caught up and focused on our own problems and our own issues. For example, one of the big things I hear from people is that, I want to change the world. What if the world was already perfect and I needed to change me so I could see its perfection? Now that is a game worth playing, because then you stop solving everybody else's problems. You stop solving traffic issues and everything else like this because everybody's driving this way, and you start solving it within here, which the masters have said for centuries. Start here when you really want to solve stuff out there. And that's the journey that I'm on, and that's the things we really do really well here at Samurai Success.
Yes, all right. Wow, thanks so much for answering that. Start from within. Start within.
Yes, sir.
Start within. Wow, David, your journey has been remarkable, from real estate and politics to becoming Tony Robbins' top trainer and now leading Samurai Success Incorporated. Can you take us back to that defining moment when you knew your path was about service and soul?
So I would love to tell you there was a minute where I was like, I was there and then I'm here. That's not how it happened. So I'll tell you, I was living in South Beach. I was working in real estate. I was making very good money. I mean, very good money. And I was the business manager for a gentleman who became the #1 selling agent in the world. So I was on top of the game. We were actually going to seminars promoting the company I was working with. I was on stage. I'm 26 years old, I think, at the time, if I remember right. I'm driving a 560 SL Mercedes. I'm living in a $3.5 million home. Our office is a yacht on the intercoastal now all these amazing things are going on in my life. I have access to everything that you could think as a man would want. I have access to it all. Toby, I am absolutely depressed out of my mind. Now, that doesn't make any sense. It was like I was living the life that I thought I should live, or anyone should live, or want to live, and I was absolutely unhappy. I mean, miserably unhappy. And I was like, that's it. I've got to do something different. So I went on a very different journey, and that was I stopped following my ego, and I started looking for a soulful approach. And the amazing work that came into my life from that, and that's been my journey for the last 27, 30 years, if you will, is about finding this way to integrate the soul and ego into who I am so that I can explore this place in a way. Because I went the ego way when I was younger, and then I went really soulful way when I was, 20s, mid 20s. And I was like, man, walking around in white robes and sandals and doing those kind of things and praying and meditation all day. Listen, if you sit around your house long enough and meditate all day, people will start showing up and taking your furniture. So I was like, this doesn't work. That doesn't work. What if that worked? And that's the journey I've been on for the last 27 years, is figuring a way to integrate. I believe that your soul here is on a journey. It has its very clear agenda about what it wants to do, and it's individual for each one of us. But the similarity is that we're here to experience ourselves as who we say we are. That's the most beautiful thing I've learned over this period of time, that I am here to experience that which I say that I am. And that is such a powerful ally in my life now, because then as I explore multiple different facets of who I want to be this lifetime, I take that mission purpose into that conversation and that experience. And it's a fascinating way, is like, I just never get bored with things. I'm that, all the, that self-talk that goes on in your head sometimes, I just don't have that anymore, because I'm really looking at a way to be able to say, how magnificent is this moment, even when it's painful. Especially when it's painful, Toby. That's the real journey, is how to figure out how to be your best when things aren't going really well. And that's a journey worth living.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. How to be your best no matter what you're going through, be it good, be it bad, in the life of who you are. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Wow. So, I mean, you've answered the question already, but if you look back right now and you look at where you are today, would you say you are living your happiest life?
Am I living my happy? I am living my joyous life, brother. I will tell you.
I love that. Yeah, that's better than
And
happy.
I don't mean I am so grateful for so many things. And by the way, as an entrepreneur and a businessman, you can go bankrupt any minute. And if I let that worry me, then I'm going to have a very unhappy life. It's not that I don't worry about stuff. I just spend less time worrying about that and much more in a place of abundance. And that's the game. I used to spend this much time worrying, and now it's down to that. And I'm going to spend the next 50 years of my life, if I've got it in me, to just bring it down a little bit more, because that's what it's all about. Of course I get angry. Of course I get upset. Of course I have the moments of depression. I just don't spend a lot more time there like I used to.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where joy comes in. So you move from happiness to joy because you're spending so much more time in that place, and you can see what it attracts in your life. And I saw what it attracted when I was worried. And now I see what attracts when I'm happy. And now I'm really exploring this idea of when I'm joyful, what does that attract? And that's fun.
Living in a space of high energy, high frequency, don't worry too much or dwelling on the downfalls of pitfalls of life, basically. Yeah. Wow. So one question I really love to ask you, and you talked about it briefly earlier. You talked about, who we are, like creating who you are, basically. And, in the course of also recording this podcast, I've always been learning about, living a life of purpose. And for me, it sounds like, discovering who I am. So I would just like to learn from you, basically, and know what the difference could be between creating who I am and discovering who I am. Like, can you share what this shift means and how it changes how we live?
So a big part of my life I've spent with very well-meaning people telling me over and over again, you got to get out and you got to find out who you are, as if there was this hidden treasure box somewhere where I had to go search somewhere and find this treasure box, open up, and inside of it would be this identity statement, if you will. Right. And I will tell you, I watch movies and I watch all these things, and, your destiny is waiting for you, those kind of things. And I was like, that's not been my experience. There's something missing. And then, my gosh, Toby, on the spiritual path, I ran into a true master who showed me very experientially that I'm not here to discover who I am. I'm not here to find who I am. I'm here to create who I am. I'll tell you, I'm hoping I'm doing this justice, because this is so profound that if you look at any celebrity on this planet, anybody you admire, anybody that you would go, man, I really like that about that person. That person has created that image within themselves so that you're experiencing it. So everybody's chasing this fame and celebrities and everything else. Like, listen, you are a celebrity within you. You've just forgotten it. And to then sit down and actually create who you are in different aspects of your life is the work we do here. But more importantly, it's been available for you for your whole life. And that's been the fun, exciting part of this, is that when I write these things down and we actually take people into what's called the I Am Studio, and you actually take your own verbiage, your own words, your own voice, and you write down who you are. Because if you don't do this, you're living a life created by someone else. And this is the challenging part when we realize this. As long as you accept that, hey, my parents helped design who I am, friends, family, religion, society, culture, whatever it is, as long as you accept that, great, good job. Because then you've used free will to say, yes, I accept everybody else's identity for me. That's not how I'm going to work. That's not how I'm going to live. I want to sit down and create my life the way I want to be able to live it, in service of others. And so when I wrote this down and I programmed that into my subconscious programming, because 95% of everything you're manifesting in this physical realm comes from that part of your brain. Now, you and I are having a wonderful conversation. It's a conscious conversation. It's not affecting my subconscious, because my subconscious is protected by my ego. And my ego goes, no, no, no. We know who we are. I'm doing this. I'm in control here.
Yeah.
I want to not let this stuff get in. When you are able to really make the shift to be able to reprogram that subconscious mind, you start living a very different experience on your own terms. And I will tell you, people talk about being, living a life with purpose. This is purpose. You are living the life you have chosen. You have written down and you have done the work to be able to get into your subconscious mind. So then you're manifesting the things that are coming from your subconscious mind, these events that you want in your life. So it's really remarkable when you see people actually apply this technology in their lives and the lives they start living from.
Yeah, that sounds beautiful. All my life, I've always, heard, go out there, discover who you are, find out who you are, and then, start living that life of purpose. But, creating who you are, creating who I am, gives me that kind of, puts me in that, makes me captain of that ship, basically. It helps me to be the author of my life, or the co-author, because God is like the author, the co-author of my life, because I give him the full authority, basically. Now, David, I would like to know, now I want to start creating who I am. And I have a piece of paper right now, I have a pen. What do I do? What's the technique? What should I start doing, to create myself?
So that's why we wrote the book. So Swords of Illumination is the name of the book. And in that book, you're going to start learning there are these elements of your subconscious programming. So just like your brain is hardware, your verbiage is software. So the things you say every single day are actually programming your brain, your subconscious brain, about how you want to attract things, how you're going to experience things, and most importantly, how you're going to respond and react to things when they show up. So there were a number of things in my life when they showed up, I just had these immediate responses to them. Have you ever had one of those where, you're like, something happens, you're like, what? And you're like, where did that come from?
Yeah.
What happened there? That's your subconscious. That's your programming taking control, because it's programmed to react and respond to keep you safe. Now, whether those responses and reactions actually keep you safe is the question. If they keep you safe, keep doing them. If they don't, then you're going to have to do a reevaluation of like, hey, that's not, and by the way, we always say the same language. Man, I don't feel good about that. That's not who I am. There it is. There's your identity. So as you progress through life, and by the way, when you read the book, if you get a chance to, in there, you're going to start learning these different elements from identity, which is the very first sword, and also mission and purpose, all these outcomes. I mean, the whole thing, the whole system is right there in that book. So I highly recommend getting out there and getting a copy of that, because then you'll know all the elements of this. And book 2, which is a companion book to that, will then give you the next 6 swords. And there's 12 swords together that you can understand that you can actually rewrite your programming to be able to start living the life you want to.
Yeah, yes. I've not read the book yet in details, but for listeners out there who are already, curious to know, I'll just read out some of the chapters. Like you started out with, wrong turn and then out of tune, what to do in order to, get back on track. And I love the fact that, you listed all the there's the school of Aspen, for example, and then the sort of identity, which is very important, and sort of mission, sort of roles, sort of outcomes, sort of values, sort of decisions, I believe.
Nice.
Yeah. And then at the end, then you go from, wrong turn in chapter 1 to going on the right turn at the end of the book. So that's a journey to go on, I believe. Yeah. That's the right journey to go. Yeah.
Love to share that journey if I could, because it's
Yes.
interesting, right? People, they just saw the book, which was published in 2023. We're going up on our 2-year anniversary this Friday, actually August 15th. It was interesting because we finished the book in 2007 to 2009. So we finished the book in 2009, and then it sat on a shelf to 2023.
Why?
There's a great question. I've been in this industry for quite some time. And I will tell you, man, there's lots of promises made in this industry. Most of those promises aren't true. They're not accurate. And some are just bull-faced lies. I didn't want to do that. I wanted something different. I made a commitment through prayer that if the universe gave me something that really worked, I would share it with everyone. But I needed to know that it worked. So between 2009 and 2023, I've been living that elements of those books. Every couple of years, Toby, I do something crazy. Now, I have this company, I have a family, I have all these other things going on, but I put myself in really interesting situations called the learning curve, because as a coach, I'm asking you as a client to get into the learning curve. You're going to learn something new. That's not always fun, right? To get into the learning curve. A lot of people, that's why they say, oh, you can't teach old dogs new tricks. They don't want to be in the learning curve. But if you're going to want to get out of insanity and you want to do something different, you're going to have to learn new pieces of information. So I make sure I do that every couple of years. Crazy things. Scuba diving with over 800 dives in my lifetime. Swimming with great white sharks. Long-range precision shooting. Racing motorcycles. Racing cars. Stunt riding motorcycles. Pulling wheelies I've never done any of these things. Never. I wasn't even on a motorcycle until I was almost 35 years old. And so how do you teach my brain to be able to do all these individual things? Now, here's the most important part. I'm not sharing this with you to impress you. I didn't do this for you, brother. You're a good man and everything, but I don't know you. I didn't go out there. I can't wait to tell Toby that I, rode a motorcycle on a one wheel for two miles. I wanted the experience of that. I wanted to see if I could put myself in the learning curve of something that scared the bejesus out of me and still follow through with it. And using this technology, I've been able to do that. So a list of over 25, 30 different things I've never experienced, including ice hockey. So I grew up in the Florida Keys underneath the water, and I've never been on ice before. I've never skated before in my life. I'm 40 years old, just so you know, when I started this, and I didn't even know how to tie my skates. There was a young man, a teenager, I think, at the skating rink who actually tied my skates for the very first time as I got on this with all these pads and the stick. And I didn't know what the rules were. I'd never watched hockey before. And I was literally falling over from the player's bench onto the ice just to be able to get on it. That's how bad I was. 18 months later, we won the summer championship and I was the assist leader. Yeah, how in the heck
do you do
do we
that?
do that?
How do you do that?
And so what I want to share with you is that really doesn't matter what I've done with this. What could you do with this? What if you could take some of that bucket list items that, yeah, it's really nice having all that bucket list stuff, but what if you could actually learn technology that already exists inside of you? You could use that technology to start taking those things off your bucket list, to truly live the life that you say you want to live, but are afraid to do it because of the learning curve that goes along with every single one of those things. This weekend, I'm going to go on a 15-hour ride on a motorcycle called the 100,000 foot ride. And it takes you through Colorado on this adventure motorcycle that I'm going to be on. And it takes you through elevation changes that equal 100,000 feet of change. And it's a remarkable ride in one of the most beautiful scenic places on the planet, Colorado. I am going to do that all day long with about 600 or 700 friends that I don't even know about yet, because they're all going to be on the ride together. So that's the kind of adventurous life I've chosen to live with that. Great question, I think, to really pose to you and the listeners today is, what would you do with it?
Deal with it. How do you deal with fear? Like, fear of starting something new, fear of failing, for example, or hurting yourself? How do you deal with all of that?
So in that motorcycle stunt riding, right? So you're riding a motorcycle, you have to pull the wheel up, and it's a very powerful motorcycle. Just a little bit over, you crash, you fall over, you get off balance. It's scary. And most of the time when you're riding a wheelie, you're going about 70 miles an hour. So it's not slow. And then I finally get this position. And then my instructor says, now you have to shift gears when I'm in a wheelie.
I'm imagining right now. I'm like, oh my God, I'm already sweating without even being on the motorcycle.
Thank goodness I had a helmet on. No one could see me sweating. But the thing is that you've got to be able to overcome that fear. And truth is, real courage is facing fear and move it through it as, like the fear exists, and I'm going to move through it anyway. That's true courage. So if I am courage, and I am going to express that in this way is my identity statement. So when I started stunt riding motorcycles, I wrote my I am statement about who I am so that I could overcome those fears. And then I just had to keep practicing it so that I could become this, because being that helped me accomplish stunt riding. When I went to play hockey, I created an identity statement that I studied Wayne Gretzky, by the way, who had this remarkable ability to be where the puck was going. He was not where the puck was. He was always seemed to be on the ice where the puck was. He knew intuitively. I put that in my identity statement. Then I programmed that in there. And guess what? I'm doing the behavior like Wayne Gretzky is. I'm going to the part of the ice where the puck ended up. That's how I became the assist leader. Now, I'm never going to be in Wayne Gretzky. That's not the programming I get to be. I'm never going to be Wilt Chamberlain and play basketball at 5'9", with heels on. That's not the purpose of this technology. The technology is for you to be your best in whatever you want to accomplish. That's an exciting life.
Can you shine some light on this technology? Like, I know I've learned, right now, creating who I am by writing my I am statements. Are there like some other tools that you could maybe reveal to us already? Some of these words from your book that you could maybe, give away at the moment.
Sure. So I will tell you that once you have your identity statement and that's part of your life, you're living that. It's one of those interesting things is to make sure you write that down and you put it up in your house somewhere. So you're constantly reminding you of this. So before we go too far down the rabbit hole, I want to let you understand is like, have you ever had one of those really great ideas or multiple great ideas over your life, or just articulating something in such a specific way? And you're like, oh, that felt so good to say it that way. And then 5 minutes later, you forget it. You're like, what the hell was I saying? What was that? Oh,
what
damn
was I
it.
thinking about? Yeah.
It was so good.
Yes.
I will tell you, no matter what race, what culture, what gender, where we are in the world, there's one thing you and I and every human being on this planet does perfectly every single day. You know what it is?
Forgetting.
We forget. I know that game. You now know that game. Here's the game. Stop forgetting who you are. Because when I remember who I am at my best, I do really well. I behave really, really well. I let things that would bother me slip right off my shoulders like it's nothing. It's like, I'm my best. I don't care about that stuff. It's when I forget to be who I am, is when stuff like that hooks me, drags me down, gets me down, makes me sad, depressed, angry, rageful. I do all those emotions when I forget who I am. So I know there's multiple things we could talk about in the book, but if you're really going to want to hit this hard right from the beginning, is write down who you say you are. Put it where you will not forget. Remind yourself every single day. So here at Samurai Success, when you come into the I Am studio, you actually record your voice in studio with us, and we then place music with it at a subconscious level. It's all your verbiage. It's all your own tone with you, talking to you. And then we plug it into your ears twice a day so that you do this meditation constantly throughout the day. I'm remembering who I am. I'm remembering who I am. I'm remembering who I am. And then when I go to sleep at night, I spend those 8 hours, right? I just listen to it, and 8 hours of that infusing back into my subconscious programming. That helps me spend less time forgetting who I am and spend more time remembering who I am. Thus, that leads me to being my best every single day.
If there's anything I'm going to take from this podcast episode, it's going to be, do not forget who you are. That's like a very powerful thing. Like
Nice.
never forget who you are. And once you don't forget who you are, you'll be at your best all the time.
Yes, sir. Think about
Oh,
that for just a minute. Just imagine you being consistently who you are. Now, there's a formula in the background here that I want to share with you guys if I can. And
yes,
that
please.
is your identity over time creates something called consistency. And it's how we know it. And by the way, this is really important for human dynamics because people trust is built with consistency over time. So that's a formula for building trust with anyone. So if you show up and you're angry all the time, guess what? People trust you to be angry all the time. If people see you being loving all the time or really consistently being that, guess what? You show up, oh, Dave's here, Toby's here. He's so loving. He's so joyous. So consistency is the key. It's when you forget though, and then you remember, and then you remember, and then you forget. That's that inconsistency. But that inconsistency over time creates consistency. And that's how people are trusting you.
Mm.
That's how you trust you. Fear is you not trusting you. You want to eliminate fear? You want to
Yes.
get rid of it? You want to lessen it? Trusting you by remembering who you are is that formula. Identity over time creates consistency. Consistency over time creates congruency. Congruency over time creates coherence. Coherence is a frequency. And that frequency is the focal point of what's called the attractor factor. This is how you're attracting things into your world. The events that are going on in your world are created by that formula. So your identity over time creates this coherence, and that coherence creates a frequency. And that frequency is what's attracting things to you. If you don't like what you're attracting in your life, you've got to change those elements.
David, thank you so much for that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to say anything to that. I'm just going to leave it that way so that everyone could think deeply about it, But yeah. Wow. When you talk about, creating who we are, you talked about, in service. And I didn't forget that. Like, I think that's like very important. Like, not to create who I am for my own ego, put away ego, but in service, that's to be in service for humanity, to do something good, something great. I was just thinking, like, in a world that often prioritizes self-interest, how do we then cultivate and protect a life built around service to others?
So it's interesting because the word samurai means in service of others, loosely translated. So that's why samurai success exists. So if you just break it down, in service of others' success, that's our whole company. That's what we're designed to do. It's our mission, it's our purpose, it's our vision. So it's a tough road to be a coach here because you have to learn literally how to get the hell out of your own way so you can truly be in service to another. Here's why. If I'm busy working on me and you and I are having a client session, then I'm just waiting for me to talk about something I know so I can impress you with how much I know and how valuable I am. And you can keep paying my invoice and we can keep this relationship going and blah, blah. It's exhausting. But most of us live that kind of life where we're just so busy wanting to promote ourselves with other people that we haven't taken the time to impress the first and most important audience member in your whole life. That's you. When you stop having to impress you and you have to stop impressing others, you can finally live a life where things are representation of who you say you are. That is power, brother. Because I know I'm going to meet some people that they're going to love me. I'm going to meet some people who absolutely do not love me, hate me. They're going to be those people, but that's not about me. Because I'm being in service of what really represents who I say I am. I'm going to attract lots of different things. The law of contrast still is in place, even when you get to a very high level masterful of being Jedi, right? Of just really being able to say, I'm going to choose this path. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this to do the right thing. And so many of us are caught in that darkness of wanting to be able to, because we've been hurt. Right? We talked about this earlier where we haven't healed some of the stuff inside of us that I've been hurt from my past. And guess what I do? In order for me to feel good about me because I'm hurt in the past, I need to beat up on you so I can feel good about me. And this cycle, Toby, that we're in, and this is what's creating so much of the conflict that you see. And then we celebrate people beating up on each other, right? We watch all these television shows that are here in the States where everybody's being nasty and ugly with everybody, and we're celebrating it like, it's like, this is all ego stuff. Your soul has no interest in that. None. There's no positive thing for that. So if we're going to really shift the planet, then we're going to have to start bringing more soulful conversations in here, having a deeper conversation about how this place really works. And that technology has been available to us for centuries. We've just forgotten.
Yeah, because we forget everything. We forget a lot.
And once you forget who you are and that connection to spirit and to guide, to God, or whatever term you want to use for that, there is, if you're only living your life for you, hey, go for it. That's who you really are. True respect. But it's not going to be something I'm going to want in my life, because I want to be in service of others. So in order to be of service of others, I better have worked on me. And that's the hard part of being a coach here. And that's what our coaches are expected to do, because if we can't do that, then we can't be in service to you. And that's the most important work. So we work on ourselves all the time around this technology, around all these things. That's why we wrote the books. That's why we have this coaching system, so that we really can be truly in service of another person.
Yes. How do you put your ego aside? How do you let go of your ego when you're working with other people, when when being in service to other people? How do you put that ego, to rest?
Beautiful question, sir. So this is the part of going deep, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. All right. So I can't tell you how you can do it. I can tell you how I have done it, how I've just, and by the way, I'm constantly working on this. I'm hoping you're sensing I have an ego, right?
Yeah.
And it's a powerful ally. I use my ego, though, as opposed to my ego using me. That's different. That's intention. I know the game. I know how this thing works. And I want to be able to, by the way, when I'm with my wife and stuff like this, my ego can play a really fun part in that relationship dynamics, right? So know that, but then it's just when you start wanting to hurt people. And that's where we don't have permission. And that's what we've forgotten. And we celebrate that way too much. So the key to being able to not have your ego use you and you using it is being able to discern the behavioral KBIs, key behavioral indicators, between your ego and your soul. So once you do that, and by the way, that's what we work on here, is being able to have you actually be able to say, no, that's my ego. No, that's my soul. That's the first step, being able to discern between those two things. And they actually show up in emotions and feelings, which is interesting because your ego speaks in language of your emotions and feelings, but so does your soul. Wait a minute now. My soul is using feelings and emotions and my ego is using soul. How can I discern between those feeling states? That's the great quest. And I didn't have the answer to that for a long time. It took me a long time to understand this. So I'll give you a simple answer that takes a lifetime to truly experience.
Yes.
And that is, you will start to notice that when you start falling into the illusions, they call them, and you start thinking you need this, or you got to do this, or you have attachments to outcomes, that's all ego stuff, man. That's all ego. And it's fun to play in that. It's fun to use that. But when it starts using you, suffering shows up. So if you're having those feelings, there are 34,000 emotional states, according to the emotional wheel. 34,000. And so many of them are focused on the ego. And some of them are focused on the soul. And taking that journey and finding out which ones go with that then allows you as a human being to discern between, oh no, that's ego. Oh no, that's soul. And then finding your balance of using that integration of both those two things.
So it's better for us to focus on the soul, basically. Like, okay, which one is coming from ego and which one is coming from soul? Then we focus on the one that's coming from the soul. Yeah.
Yes.
And I like what you said. I'm going to hold on to that also. Like, we all have ego, but we should not allow the ego to use us, but we should use the ego. And depending on where we are, or what situation we're at the moment, playing with it, or I mean, not playing with it, but, mastering it, basically. Yeah.
I can tell you that my ego has helped me overcome fear multiple times, like riding that motorcycle or racing a car or long range precision shooting or scuba diving or diving with sharks. I got to bring my ego to the table so that I can feel safe. And that can help me overcome the fear. It's when my ego starts pushing me, like opening up the cage door and getting out of the cage with the sharks. That's not going to work. That's just your soul's like, hey, let's stay in here.
Yeah.
But
You
have
still
some
want to
fun with me.
leave.
Think about this. Joy, bliss, happiness, all those are related to the soul. Anger, rage, depression, ego. When you spend some time with this, you're going to actually find that you can actually place those emotional states in very clear quadrants of those two things. It's an exercise that's worth undertaking, is what I'm saying. It's incredibly valuable. So highly recommend doing that.
Yeah. Wow. Thanks so much for that. Yeah. Good. So, I mean, I'm learning a lot from you already, David. I've learned so much from you. Well, I'd like us to touch a little bit on your book again, Swords of Illumination. I would just like to know, like, just for being curious, like, why is it, fable set in Japan? Why is it the Japanese settings to it, and all the swords and the samurai and all that? What's the inspiration behind that?
So the real inspiration is that I really wrote that book for me. That's the selfish confession that I like to make with that. I wrote that book for me so that I wouldn't forget this stuff. As a matter of fact, I know this is going to sound way out there, man, but just stay with me. I have this sense, I don't know why, I have this sense that I've been here before. And I have a sense that I'm going to be back here again. Do you know what one of my big fears was? Having to learn all this stuff over again. I was like, I'm going to start from zero again. Damn it. I don't want to do that. So used a bit of my ego here and said, what if you wrote that down? What if you wrote down all these principles you've learned? You made a promise to the universe to get the information out there, so that takes care of that. But what if you really wrote it for you so that you could remind yourself? So if I come back here, I can find that book. That book will find me. And then I won't have to relearn all this stuff, man. It'll be in one location that I can pull and start reading that and start applying it even younger than I did this lifetime. I don't know about you, man, but that excites me.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think I do. I was speaking with someone earlier some time ago, and I was like, it's a pity that life doesn't come with a manual. Like, you're giving birth to,
Yeah.
and you just have to face life and figure it out. But it would be so awesome if you're giving birth to and immediately you know how to read, you get a manual. I can do this, do that. It makes life easier. It makes you make the right decisions easier. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
part 2 of your question was why in the fable? So
Yes.
I really love to read today. I didn't like to read when I was younger, but today I love to read. And one of my favorite genres is the fable. So storytelling, right? And then integrating things into it. And so my favorite author is a gentleman named Augmentino. And he wrote multiple books based upon the Christian faith kind of thing that all had this fable line. And in his book, he had these scrolls that he used to write. The principles were on these scrolls. And in our book, of course, those principles are written on swords. And so the swords are the scrolls, if you will, with all the different principles inlaid in those things, right? And the samurai, of course, concepts about being in service to others. If you truly want to live a great life, and this I've heard multiple times over my lifetime, if you really, truly want to live a great life, truly live a life in service of others. And that's it. That's the game. So that was where this word samurai came in place. I've been studying martial arts for most of my life in a world called Aikido and actually jujitsu, Japanese jujitsu called TSYR. So if this idea about being able to be in service to others, I want a constant reminder of that's who I am. And so I study 7-8 hours a week, kind of thing in these arts to keep reminding me of who I am so that I can truly be in service to other people. So those are the real reasons that I wrote the book with a fable mine, because I wrote it for me. I love to read fables. So that's it.
Yeah, but that's the wonderful gift, isn't it? I mean, writing something for yourself or giving it to the world out there, to make use of also for their own self.
And
Has
then we're
been,
really getting some amazing feedback, Toby, from people from all over the world that are having a shared experience around the book. They're like, this book found me, or it found me at the perfect time when I'm going through a really dark place, or I'm in a really happy place and I want to keep things going. We're getting feedback from all over the world right now. I haven't heard from Germany as of yet, but who knows? That may be changing right now. But
yeah.
from so many, I've had to look at a map and go, where is that town? And it's just amazing how the book is spreading like wildfire. It's amazing.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's that's been in service to others, right? I mean, that's the definition of it.
And
So yeah,
that's, oh, I hate to cut you off there. I really want to share with your audience and with the audience that's listening is that so much of us are focused on the results of things. I didn't know any of this was going to happen. I didn't count on any of this stuff happening. I didn't put it out there like this is going to sell 10 million copies or anything else and wrote down that. None of that stuff's true. I put my heart and soul in that book. And that's when you do things like that, brother, that's part of your identity. The results happen on their own. Let go of the results. The results will happen exactly the way they're supposed to. Boy, that's a powerful reminder, even to myself right now, is stop focusing on the results, which you don't have control over, and start focusing on the things you do have control over. Those control freaks in the room like me again, the only thing you have control over is, your thoughts and the meanings you give to things. Put your heart and soul. Let the universe take care of the other things, and it will work out.
that's a powerful message. What I have in my control is to put my heart and soul into what I'm doing right now, and the rest will figure itself out.
Beautifully said, sir.
I love that.
I will tell you that there's been a lot of teachings in my life that say focus on the results, break down the number that you want to have. That hasn't worked for me. So I just went a different way. Focus on what I can control, put my best effort, show up in my best as much as I possibly can. And do not judge yourself when you don't show up. Just write down how you can be better the next time and move on. Because if you keep judging yourself, then you just create events of your past that just suck all your energy into the past where you don't have it to use it to build a really compelling future.
I like the name of your studio, the I Am Studio, right? Yeah, I love that so much, and the technique that you make use of. But I would just like to know, you have this spiritual depth with you, and there are the practical strategies also that you make use of. Like, how do you guide your clients to balance practical strategies with spiritual depths?
So it's an interesting process for sure. But I will tell you that we're having a soulful conversation right now. And what I mean by that is, as I go into a session with a client, I already know, my soul knows that your soul knows everything I'm talking about. It already knows this. So I give up this whole teacher thing. It's like, I'm not teaching you anything. This is not a school. This is not a university. There is a part of you that already knows everything that it needs to get where you want to get to. My job is to remind you of that because you've forgotten. Now you take that principle into your life as a teacher, as a parent, for God's sakes. Do that to your kids. Know that they have a soul. That soul knows exactly what I'm talking about. As a matter of fact, right now as we're talking, if this is resonating with you at any level, then I'm talking to your soul. Our souls are talking. My ego's out of the way and it's just making, and we use the word profound whenever we have these resonance about things. So that's just the indicator, the key behavioral indicator that just says, oh my gosh, this is really speaking to my soul. Well, yes, this is its purpose. You have one of those. I have one of those. It already knows all this stuff so that we can get the ego out of the way. Like, I need to teach you something. That's not true at all. You've just forgotten these steps. Having you being reminded of those steps, Toby, and then applying those and getting the results you're after is acts of service. It's about doing what we agree upon, which is such joy in my life and yours. So that's the game we play here at Samurai Success.
Wow, awesome. So for people out there who have heard Samurai Success a lot of times right now, and they are wondering, okay, how do I reach out to, how do I get across to David? How do I, start to live a life of creating who I am and a life of service to other people? So I would just like you to, tell us how we could work with you, how we could connect with you, to start that journey of ours of self-awareness.
So the best way to reach us is samuraisuccess.com. So SAMURAI success.com. And that give you a library. I think we have over 150 videos on there for you to take a look at, podcasts, media events, things I've been talking about for quite some time, and really will give you some great information. When you're ready to take the next step, there's all kinds of information about how to get, call with me personally if you wanted to be able to do that. And I will tell you that we do both this personal coaching, life coaching, if you will, which is really focused on the Swords of Illumination, the Sophie program, we call it. And we've been doing individual coaching with that for I don't know how many years, but we just started this year group coaching. And that's from people all over the world right now in groups, small groups of 4, with me as the lead on this, taking you through the principles of the book and actually how to apply this information into your life. Now, what's interesting about that is that people go, well, if this is life coaching, could it be business coaching? Well, we have a business coaching aspect of that. And guess what? The business coaching is secondary to the life coaching because it's all integrated in our system. Because once you know who you are, you build that business based upon supporting your identity. Everything is in alignment with that. And then things take off. Most important things is that if money is your most important thing, good for you, total respect on this. But we work with clients that aren't focused on money. We focus on mastery. Mastery is what provides the results of money. If you're just focused on money, there's plenty of other coaches out there for you to help you with that. And I wish you the best. But our focus on if you really want to master your life and you master your business, we can help you.
Awesome. I'm going to place a link to your website in the show notes of this episode. So I encourage everyone out there to click on the link, copy the link, and reach out to you. And also the link to you where they could get your book also. So they could, pick up the book. Yes, Swords of Illumination. And hopefully by the time the second part is out, everyone will also get it and, continue on that journey. Yes. Oh, David, I've learned so much from you from this conversation. I feel so much blessed. Reminded me of so many things.
Love you, baby. God.
It reminded me of so many things that I've forgotten. And I hope I won't forget. If I forget, I'll have to listen to this episode over and over and again to remind myself to always be in service to other people. If there's a closing remark that you would like to, maybe something we didn't cover that you still want to, bless people out there with today, what would that be?
So in my lifetime, the most powerful principle I've learned is basically chapter 5, if you will, but it's the very first sword. And that's your sword of identity. Now, I know we've talked about this, so I want to really hit this hard and really impress this upon you. You are not here to discover who you are, find out who you are. That's a pathway that's going to take you in a very different experience. For those who want something different, you are here to create who you are. And if you just take that principle, and please do not trust me on this, go look at the world and go find a celebrity that you like, a politician that you like, politician that you don't like, whatever. They're being in the limelight. If they're being creative, they're being successful. They have created this life. They have not found it. No one told them that they were this. They have created for themselves. And when you see that level of mastery, then you'll know the path to take.
Yes. Thank you so much for that. I love that so much.
Thank you very much.